Welcome to Truth Seekers Teesside. So I've got tonight a guest, as you know, will be Steve James. He's from, I've known for like about 3 years since from Truth Seekers Northeast, and he's going to talk in a moment about a dark tale and the occult. Okay, so let's introduce our guest, Steve James.
Thank you. Hi folks, and thanks very much. Thanks Chris for the introduction and thanks for the invite to Truth Seekers Teesside. I'm not your first speaker by any chance, am I?
No, we've had Mark Steele, we've had Kevin Corbett, and we've had Stacey, who is in Newcastle tonight.
Yeah. Well, I know I've met some of you guys before, for those I haven't met, thanks very much for hosting me here. I've come down from Northumberland, I live in Blythe, just off Newcastle. What I'm going to do is start off with a bit of a breakdown on the Travis Scott debacle. I'm sure some of you maybe you've seen some of that on the news, or maybe some of this speculation that's been going around on the internet, how it ties in with occult themes. Has anyone got any kind of knowledge or experience with occult themes? If I was to say, do you know much about the occult? Would anyone be able to put their hands up? Yeah? So a few of these, okay. As Chris was saying, don't be alarmed because occult themes tend to be taken out of context. A lot of people kind of associate occult knowledge, occult doctrine with being evil or satanic. That's just one aspect of it. It points to divinity, it points to spirituality, and that can be either good or bad. And it depends on the mindset, the will, or the deeds of the practitioner. So, if your heart's got good intent, you've got nothing to worry about. One reason I expose occult knowledge is that I consider myself to be, you could maybe say, a light occultist. That means I want to bring hidden and secret wisdom to other people so they can benefit from the understanding and appreciation of their divine nature and the divine nature of the universe. Dark occultists do the opposite. These are the people controlling the world. These are the people keeping you enslaved and trapped and ignorant to what our reality is all about. So, before I start going off on tangents, I will lead straight into the Travis Scott presentation. Has anyone seen it on the news? Yeah. It's not a complete strange occasion for everybody, is it? Right, okay then. So Travis Scott is an American rap artist, quite big. I'll be quite honest, I've heard some noise music. I never really knew much about him before this. But this was certainly percolating a lot on the internet, and I think this is tremendous because it kind of ties in with the Great Awakening of humanity. And in order that we're awakening, one needs to know about occult natures. So let's go into Astroworld. And as it says there, we'll see on the other side. Astroworld, by the way, is equated to a satanic ritual. Whether it was or whether it wasn't, who knows? But it's certainly got all the hallmarks, and that includes the date. You might appreciate that Satanists or occultists or pagans use particular dates in the calendar, and the 5th of November is one such one. We know it was Guy Fawkes Day, the day Guy Fawkes tried to blow up the Houses of Parliament, another false flag attempt. Different subject, but that was the 9/11 of its day. Guy Fawkes, that happens, or bonfire night relates to Baal fires. Baal is the lord of the underworld, somebody, a god who, yeah.
It's my birthday. Should I leave the room?
No, it's indifferent. But for whatever reason, perhaps it's a bale of energy which is, able to be harnessed on these dates or around about those time periods. But anyway, Balefire Night, that was when that was. And we'll start off with a quote there from a guy called, this is a pseudonym, this is a guy called Isaac Whitehouse. You might recognize that name. Anyone recognize the name? Yeah, and you might recall Adam Weishaupt was the founder of the Bavarian Illuminati. So this guy uses the pseudonym Isaac. I think his real name is Jay Dyer, and he's quite a prolific author. He's written a lot of occult themed books. He's got a really good website called IlluminatiWatcher.com, so I'd recommend that if you want to find out more. But he's saying the temple grounds of Astroworld is the place they're telling you you're about to enter into a new realm, and here are your rapper gods, and we're going to make a sacrifice to these gods. So the temple grounds were in a place called Astroworld. That's Houston in Texas. Used to be a theme park, and the time when this occurred, as I said, was Bonfire Night. Bonfire Night is shortly after a period of time known as, well, it looks like Samhain, but it's pronounced Samhain or Soin. It's a time when the doorway to the astral world is open, or the other realm is open. So the Astroworld Festival took place on November the 5th, which is an Illuminati sacrifice night, which is a few days after Samhain, which is an ancient festival of death and sacrifice. Of course, this is pretty much the day after Halloween. Halloween followed by Samhain. Can't read my own writing there. It's a time of year when the veil between this world and the underworld is at the thinnest. So in a cult circle, Samhain is observed and celebrated with animal and human sacrifice. So already the dates are kind of right for this perhaps Satanic festival to take place. Pentagrams, and if you have a look at the picture on your right hand side, pentagrams, all seeing eyes, pyramids, the earthly elements are all depicted there, and you'll see some strange symbols on the artwork promoting the Astroworld show. Very occult. Then you've got some text scrolled on the side, and we've got the words, see you on the other side, and open your eyes to a whole new universe. These are Kabbalistic references to the other side of the tree of life. Again, this is a very, very highly occult motif, if you're not familiar with it. It's where the dark demonic forces reside in the other dimension, and it means you're about to enter into a new realm. So they're telling you, as Satanists, occultists need to do, as part of the ritual, they need to tell you what they're going to do. But they usually do it with a little bit of tongue-in-cheek humor, satanic mockery. Again, these satanic themes, these occult themes continue. This is the entrance to Astroworld. And this is titled Christ in Limbo, Welcome to the Gates of Hell, because the entrance to the festival is based upon a giant model of Travis Scott's head. The victims are kind of consumed as they enter into the portal through his open mouth in a cannibalistic kind of fashion. It's a Freemasonic idea, so you face death so that you can become spiritually reborn into something else. And this is a very prominent motif in kind of occult circles. Some compare the gape of mouth to Hieronymus Bosch's famous painting, which is called Christ in Limbo. And you can see that down the bottom there. And that depicts the portal to the gates of hell. The title of Scott's album was Astroworld as well, so not only the theme park, but also the title of his album. The theme park was previously called Six Flags Astroworld. It's probably all coincidental, but number six is the number of base consciousness, is quite often equated to satanic themes, as in 666, as you probably all appreciate. But base consciousness, if you were to define what Satan is, because most people kind of think Satan's a guy with horns and a pointy tail and a demonic looking face, it's a metaphor for man's ignorance, essentially. Satan is man's ignorance. Satan is base consciousness. Base consciousness is represented by the number 6 or 666. Number 777 is kind of the polar opposite. The polar opposite being spiritually enlightened man, the number of perfection. Base consciousness could be defined more accurately as kind of willful ignorance. And again, that's one of the tenets of Satanism. If you were to follow the religion of Satanism, then ignorance and selfishness, I dare say, is one of the tenets. To overcome ignorance, we must face or seek the truth. We must speak the truth, and then we must honor the truth. You could say that's almost what the metaphor of the Holy Trinity is all about. See the truth, speak the truth, and honor the truth. When we walk into Astroworld, Paul, we do it with ignorance because we turn a blind eye to the spiritual natures in our world and the forces at play behind the scene. When the spirit of Antichrist is summoned, it takes advantage of our weakness by trying to influence our behaviors. Pretty much everything in occult circles is almost borderline philosophical. It's philosophical because in order to enrich your mind, you need to start contemplating and thinking at a higher and deeper level about the meaning of many things. Many things in religion relate to metaphorical, thought-provoking actions that we must kind of interpret. It's not an easy process. This is why most people don't understand it. Okay, Fright Nights at Astroworld. So Astroworld held something called Fright Nights, which were special events for Halloween, and they continued until the place shut in 2005. But we can see on the stage set, and again, don't be put off by the fact that that picture probably doesn't depict it fully, but entering to the other side, metaphorically, was by the 6 concentric rings at the base of a fiery volcano. Some can even say it resembles a pyramid structure, but either way, it's kind of demonic in its appearance. In demonology, the number 8 is the number of Astaroth, basically a demon known as the Great Duke of Hell. Astaroth is part of the evil trinity, a fallen angel, and 29th out of the 72 spirits of Solomon. The number 8 represents the number of flames shooting up from the stage, and also the number of people who actually died at the concert. Well, I believe it's now 10, but certainly the first news reports were about 8 people, which I think is quite symbolic. Either way, they all died of mysterious circumstances, with the cause of death being unknown, although there was indication of it being a crush. But again, these stories don't corroborate at all. You could say that these celebrities, rappers, are our modern day gods because they live amongst us, idolized as gods, and to sacrifice human victims in front of the gods at festivals or celebrations is very much in line with the ancient rituals, such as those performed by the Aztecs. The Aztecs would rip out the hearts of the sacrifice, which parallels the theory of the cardiac arrests suffered by the Astroworld victims. Blood is the life force and the vital substance that energizes the body. It's the animating principle in life, you could say. Blood combines with spirit, and therefore sacrifice leads towards communion with the other realms. Sacrifice can be seen as a means to acknowledge dependence on the unseen powers controlling life and death. It's a form of communication with the gods and the ratification of a spiritual agreement. Astroworld is perhaps linked to Astaroth. And this is the star of Astaroth, and you'll notice that it's still used today by many of the police forces. That's the Northumbria police. They wear on their uniform the Star of Astroworld. I'm sure it's all a coincidence. However, has anyone seen the Victoria Police in Australia? They've got an inverted pentagram on their uniform, and it doesn't really get more demonic than that. But that's another conversation. So open your eyes to a whole new universe. Here's some more flyers from the event, some more advertising shots. Because people are being sucked into another universe under the watchful eye of the occult elite. And sadly, this is exactly what happened at that event. The stage is set before us Vulcan, the god of destruction, because the show began with a fiery, hellish volcano, perhaps to represent Vulcan, who is the god of destruction, inside which a giant eyeball gazes out at and towards the musical occult ritual goers. Does anybody know what the oath to Vulcan is, in sort of physical terms, if I was to do that? Has anyone heard of the oath to Vulcan? I'm not trying to swear my oath to Vulcan there. Does anyone know which particular person in history does done this? Yeah, have a think about that. The oath to Vulcan.
He was evil, wasn't he?
I don't think he was necessarily the good guy and the war hero we kind of history. In fact, I'll tell you now, he was the exact opposite, but that's another story. Right, this whole mountain, this effigy of Vulcan, the hole in the mountain turns into a spiral portal to usher its victims into the other side. And the spiral represents the evolution of man, the entrance to a new dimension and therefore the new world, which is ironically the theme of Travis Scott's new album, which is called Utopia, because that's where we're heading, or is it dystopia? The symbol of the dystopian brave new world we are being guided into by our compliance, and I've put this in capitals because this is our compliance and our acceptance of evil. If the fabric of the universe works based on the aggregate, that's the collective conscience, you could say, and if we as an aggregate are attuned because we follow an evil system, a system of deceit, a system of manipulation, we are by default evil in our intent. That's what needs to change. If you want the world to change, we need to change. That's why we need to wake up to understand what evil represents and how the occult information or occult knowledge keeps us in deceit. So, because a dystopian utopia, you could say, is already here. And, you know, again, this is more sort of paraphernalia from that concert and from his musical celebrity. This is the kind of stuff that our youngsters are watching and learning and being kind of sucked into. It's worth remembering that when people give themselves to evil, there's only one winner, and that's Satan, the spirit antichrist, whatever you want to call it, the dark side of the force of the universe. Satan wins. But when we don't seek God's help and then invoke Satan, you have to expect bad things to happen. And bad things certainly happen during that sort of devil worshiping festival. And this is Travis Scott at the festival itself. I have a quick look at his shirt there because Mr. Scott was wearing a shirt depicting a person entering a portal and emerging transformed into a devil. Note the colours as well. Red and blue represent the two lodges of Freemasonry. And you've probably all seen the Matrix, the film, the red pill and the blue pill motif, or you've maybe heard about what that represents. It's like the union of opposites, the polarities, red and blue. And that, I mean, outside of this presentation, I can pick that those colours and how they're used so many times in certainly loads of different ways. Things like some of these terrorist attacks, Westminster Bridge. I looked at the two buses that were involved in that incident, red and blue, just like the colours of Freemasonry. Very interesting to say the least. So you could say that's demons passing through portals, and there seems to be a bit of a demonic theme running throughout this guy's kind of certainly celebrity. This is Kylie Jenner. Kylie Jenner in a blood sacrifice photo shoot. And apparently the symbolism surrounding Travis got changed quite drastically after he got involved with these guys. These are all, useless celebrities who we falsely idolize, watching them on the TV because they've just had their nails done or whatever else. Since then, things only got darker and more satanic. And here's a little weird fact you might have heard. The festival took place on Kris Jenner's 66th birthday. Kris Jenner is her mother, and young Kylie there covered in blood. She attended Travis Scott's, who's her boyfriend, by the way, Travis Scott's tragic Astroworld festival. Because Kylie is another false idol, just like I said, who has a particular fondness for bloodbath photo shoots to help us accept evil into our lives and distract us from godliness. Kris Jenner also tweeted some posts online which ran into some controversy because she was thanking young Travis Scott for the beautiful red roses she got delivered. Which is a bit ironic because people were getting killed as she was kind of celebrating her birthday. You could say it was a little bit bad timing or whatever. Happy Death Day, dear Hitler. So Astroworld took place on Kris Jenner's 66th birthday, and this same gig was exactly 666 months plus 6 days to the day after the founding of the Church of Satan, which was April 30th, 1966. Note the number 6 and 66 or 666 often get repeated or utilised in similar sort of fashions in anything kind of dark occult. It doesn't necessarily have to be the 3 sixes to relay that sort of numerological intent.
So many coincidences there.
Yeah, it's coincidence. The reason why it's coincidences is because the universe is divine. The majority of people tend to think that the fabric of a universe and the events within it are man's creation or the result of man's actions. We need to step out of that. It's divine. These things happen divinely. Right, so April 30th, what's unique about that? And I've mentioned Happy Death Day, dear Hitler, because April 30th also marks the Satanic festival called Walpurgis Night. It was also the date Hitler supposedly killed himself. The night of Walpurgis is a celebration of resurrection rituals and black magic. And if you didn't know, that's a topic that Hitler and the Nazi Party were massively influenced by, almost to the point where the war was kind of insignificant to their occult endeavours. But that's another talk entirely. Did anyone know that, by the way? Did you know that Hitler was massively influenced by occult themes?
I read all of that, like,
Really?
Hitler used the cultists.
Yeah.
He had them there because he was trying to find out what the West was going to do. That's why he used them.
It went a bit deeper than that.
Because he knew the Satanic West, and he was waiting, he was trying to get advice of them when they were going to attack, when they were going to do things, and he done. And that's why he used them. He asked them, and those people, like D-Day, and I think they were all significant days to them people, and he had people helping him to try to warn him when these things were going to happen. That's as far as it went. He was a devout Catholic. The Pope blessed him.
Yeah.
And they're not the Pope we want now, like, you know what I mean? Not the devil worship we want now. But that's why he was a cultist who was there, and they used him to try to set his country, to try to tell him what the next move the West was going to make. That's why he used them. That's why they don't mention it very much.
But so you think Hitler was using a
They did use a company, so you come to one when there was going to make a move, because it went, they made all the moves on satanic significant days. So it's all on significant D-Day or what, they all meant something,
Yeah.
and that's how the West watched it, and that's why I use them people to do.
Well,
But
that's,
technology of Hitler and this occult thing, that's just putting by the same people, feeding all the rest of the shite.
all right. I mean, I beg to differ a lot of that, but I mean,
Um,
it's certainly a
You rebuilt the church in Germany.
say again.
You rebuilt the church and everything like that in Germany, and Catholicism and all that stuff. Through Hungary.
It's certainly on top of that provokes.
He even handed Qurans out to Muslims and stuff like that. He did believe in some divine. And that's why he was a cultist. He started to get the warnings off and that's when the next movie.
Well, one thing we know for sure is, you know, this isn't just unique to our generation. Occultism, dark or light, has been part and parcel of the fabric of humanity. And the Second World War is an excellent example of that. Oh, man. Talking about the Travis Scott concert, so the sort of occult themes and Travis Scott thing.
Don't worry, Wade. We will catch up on the. Didn't mind. We're recording this. So we,
Okay, so April 30th, we said it's known as Walpurgis Night. The night Hitler supposedly committed suicide. The date of Travis Scott's birthday. Again, that doesn't mean it's all tied into some sort of divine plan, but anyway, it's also a date when the festival of Hades, god of the underworld, took place. So it's kind of associated with negative kind of thoughts, I suppose.
The Real Society was a ET connection, wasn't
It was a what, sorry?
it? ET, like extraterrestrial connection.
Yeah, there was that as well. Yeah,
That's why the women had through their hair.
yeah, yeah. A massive. I mean, if anyone's unfamiliar with the Nazis' involvement in the cult, whether it's good or bad, certainly have a read because it's very, very fascinating. But I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven, and that's a biblical quote from Luke 10, chapter 18, verse 18. Lord, even the demons submit to us in your name. And so you told them, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Behold, I have given you authority to tread on snakes and scorpions. And that's Travis Scott in his satanically themed lightning bolt from heaven. No doubt some sort of metaphor involved there to lure us into the trappings of the dark occult. Where have you heard that motif before or seen it before? You might recognize that dude there. That's another rap artist. That's Lil Nas X. Again, watch his Montero video if you want to know how the dark occult traps us into its seduction. He was a face of the Night Air Satan advertising campaign. Night Air Satan, nice one. Believe it or not, there was only 666 pairs of that shoe made. He got a pair, so did Miley Cyrus. She's another one. Apparently they contain a drop of real human blood, and they cost $1,018, which ties us into Luke 1,018. Quite interesting, that, isn't it? You'll notice he's sporting the demonic looking eye and the one eye Illuminati motif there. But where did he perform his ritual? Well, it's got to be on an inverted cross, the most blasphemous of images, I suppose. The inverted cross is the entry point to the stage show portal. It's the most unholy of symbols as it represents a mockery towards Christ. Travis Scott is not the only celebrity blasphemer. Sure you know who this lady is? Lady Gaga, another servant of Satan, a mind-controlled puppet slave to influence your kids into the lure of the dark occult. And she has the inverted cross covering her private portal, covering and dressed as a nun in sort of, latex bondage nuns here, just to blaspheme that a little bit further. Why else, of course, would she sing a song called I'm in Love with Judas? And of course, Judas being the disciple who kind of betrays Christ. I mean, she's a subject worth hours on a discussion on herself. Very interesting. So we've got some crosswords from the music industry going down here. The Cactus Jack album, this is the logo for it, a cross with a shining halo. A lot of artists such as his mate Kanye West, who I think also performed at Astroworld, they talk about how they are gods. Because for the magician, it's about the deification of man becoming God. This is quite a common recurring theme. Travis Scott was in the 2019 Super Bowl halftime show. If you know about occultism, you've probably seen all the halftime shows and seen the same thing over and over again. Occult rituals. Like I said, there's nothing new here. So he came down onto the stage rather, as a fallen angel from heaven, with displaying the eye of Lucifer as one of the motifs and symbols. It's just another mega occult ritual. Eyes, pyramids, and spirals are significant occult symbols, and we'll see them throughout a lot of the music industry's paraphernalia and promotional artwork. Here's some more, because the spiral represents probably a few things, but one thing it represents is pedophilia. The spiral was a symbol for the sun on the solstice, when child sacrifices and demonic revelry would take place. And of course, we see it all the time in the music industry. You could say it was a blood sacrifice, but make what you will of Travis Scott's music and merchandise, but it's got that all too familiar theme to it. He's not the only one, so we've got Alice Cooper's Brutal Planet tour here with his serpent displayed on the album cover. Some of the singles from the Astroworld album include The Butterfly Effect, that's worth looking into if you've never heard of it. Sicko Mode, I guess that's the kind of mindset he's in. And another one called Wake Up. I think that's quite an interesting one. Madonna also had that theme at one of her Eurovision performances. Madonna's music is a platform used by the unseen divine force of nature, trying to wake up the world by helping us to see that the light emerging from out of the shadows. And this is her Eurovision performance, which also depicts that utopian sort of vision of the future, which is apocalyptic in its.
So is that trying to say that Madonna's
On our side.
good?
No. Well, that's like trying to say that Hitler's good. It's like trying to say that Churchill's good.
I just
Well, she's trying to wake us up.
Used by the unseen divine force.
Because this force, you could say it runs through, let's just say it runs through the consciousness of man. Just because these people are celebrities and high profile doesn't mean that we've got the same force in nature guiding them. This is a force in nature which kind of guides creation. We are part of creation. We are being guided to a.
So she's not doing it on purpose then? Is that what you're trying to say? She's just been guided by.
Not necessarily. I don't think she's necessarily doing it on purpose. Just like Travis Scott probably didn't have much involvement into that ritual. He wasn't doing it on purpose. It's just his.
Right.
That doesn't mean
They need a good or bad thing.
It could be indifferent, but these people, it's hard to define them as good or bad. I mean, I could ask yourself that, sir. I mean, I'd imagine without knowing you that you are the overarching principle you abide by is goodness, but you probably do bad things also, just like I do. I don't always do good things. I do bad things, probably not purposefully, but it doesn't mean I'm a bad person. Likewise, you could say about all these people, Hitler, Churchill, the Queen, Madonna. I'm sure in some ways she's quite a decent person, but in other ways she's not. So there is almost a force in nature which is like somewhere in between two polar opposites, good or bad, and this kind of displays itself through the architecture of the universe. The universe is divine, and the architecture that displays somehow embodies this sentiment based on man's moralistic behaviours. It's known as natural law, but it's another topic which is a little bit beyond the scope of this presentation. So Madonna's music, have I mentioned that? Yeah, I've mentioned that, sorry. But we can certainly see the imagery from Madonna's musical performances, this kind of dystopian. And moving on to Travis Scott again, one of his first albums was called Owl Pharaoh. It's got the ancient Egyptian themes in there and the owl motif, which is quite prominent in occult circles as well. So Travis Scott isn't his real name, that's his magical name, because the magician always has to take on the name of something else. The symbolism of the owl on the cover, which doesn't make sense, excuse the typos there, but the owl, when you look at the history of the occult, symbolizes wisdom or knowledge, or gnosis. The owl represents knowledge, and knowledge refers to Lucifer, the enlightened one, the light bearer, who bestows upon man the forbidden knowledge. So we've talked about kind of good and evil and somebody's intent. Well, if Lucifer tends to be related as somebody dark and evil, however, he's endowed with divine knowledge, and he tries to pass that knowledge on to his human brethren. There's some more owl symbolism. So that bottom one, that's Washington, D.C., Capitol Hill. Does anyone know about the inverted pentagram built into the city streets in Washington, D.C.? No? Okay, man at the back does, yeah, there's a few nods. So if you have a look where the White House is, then have a look at an aerial view, you'll see that the White House, based on Capitol Hill, actually sits at the lowest aspect of an inverted pentagram. So who was asking whether Trump's a good guy or a bad guy? Well, who knows, but he sits at the bottom of a giant inverted pentagram, which is essentially the sigil of Satan. Does anyone know what the word government means in Latin? Mind control. Gubernare mentis, mind control. So Trump is a member of the government, and he sits on the bottom of a inverted pentagram. So you can tell me. The other one, that's Bohemian Grove. That's where all the world's elites go to sacrifice children, or at least make mockery of that by, performing their theatre to represent it.
And according to Alex Jones, other things as well.
Probably, I can almost guarantee it. But why else would the sit? The owl, by the way, represents Moloch, which is another god of the underworld associated with child sacrifice.
Titus Colin, sorry.
No more there.
Well, I've got a question about Moloch.
Yeah, go on.
Moloch isn't he usually associated with a bull?
Both, yeah, a bull or an owl.
So why the owl? Because I've never been able to figure this out. Why did they use it for Bohemian Grove?
I'm not entirely sure why the difference between the bull and the owl. Certainly not in a kind of short answer, but essentially it's two sigils that identify with the same creature, same underworld god.
Just seems a bit out of place, doesn't it? I mean, obviously the owl's seen in the dark, fair enough, but with Moloch,
Yeah.
with the bull, I'm just wondering where the transition. I mean, it's definitely Moloch that they worship.
Yeah.
But
In a word, I'm not entirely sure why, but
They're two forces. One's the force of the mind, and the other the force of the having sex, the sexual.
Yeah.
force, I think.
yeah. I mean, I'd say predominantly the bull takes the most sort of predominant iconography over what Moloch represents. I don't know if it's linked to sort of the Turian constellation as well. Last slide on Travis Scott. And here we've got the kind of end of the show where Travis Scott's hands are kind of engulfing, you could almost say the portal, or engulfing the world, whatever. But Scott's Astroworld gave concert goers exactly what was advertised, which was essentially a trip through the Satanic portal to hell and a blood sacrifice to Satan. The dark occultist power stems from our ignorance. This is why I call myself a light occultist, somebody who can bring light and understanding as to how this works. While they create chaos in the world, we breathe life into their plans by remaining blissfully unaware, unwittingly acting as pawns. The solution is to gain self-mastery, to become whole of mind and body, which reconnects us with the spiritual realms and the source of our sovereign power, the attainment of spiritual enlightenment. That's what we need to bless the world with, spiritual enlightenment. Thank you. That's Travis Scott's Satanic stage show.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Steve. Thanks for that very much. We're going to take like a 10-minute break now. If you don't know, I'm trying to do these in like 50-minute segments so that they'll be easy to watch on the YouTube and stuff. Just take this, just a little, the least we can do, Steve's come all the way from Northumberland, so the least we can do is contribute to his fuel cost here and back, and he'll contribute a bit to the book as well. So if you can put a couple of quid in there, that would be, it'll all go towards either Steve or the club. So look forward to part 2, which will be.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a job.
Great.